What is Jing? That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. So this topic, again, it came in from someone who watches the vlog, something they were interested in. And they already, clearly from the question that they asked, they had a bit of detail in their question. They already know a bit about what Jing is. They've heard of it, and which I guess they'd have to, otherwise why would they ask? But they wanted to understand a bit more about what Jing is. Now, just to be clear, because sometimes in the Chinese language, as within the English language, and I guess lots of other languages as well, there's more than one word that sounds the same. In this context, we're talking about Jing as an essence. So some things you might hear of, as, you know, often together, you'll hear of them in relationship to each other, are Jing, Qi, and Shen. So Jing being the most substantial, the most physical aspect of our energy, is kind of the real base of the energy. The Shen being the least substantial part of our energy, our mind, our spirit, you know, connected to this, and the Qi in between being the more fluid. It's somewhere between the most substantial and the insubstantial, the more moving and flowing aspect of our energy. And there's a whole lot of different things. I'm not going to talk too much about all three of them, but we think of these as being rooted in different parts of our body. So the Jing lower dantian kind of, but specifically in the kidneys. Qi more in the middle dantian, and the Shen up in the upper dantian. And again, it's sort of from more solid to less solid to, you know, the least substantial. So what is the Jing, and why is it important? So the Jing is, as I've mentioned, it's the most fundamental aspect of our energy. It's kind of the base of our energy, and it's thought of as being stored in the kidneys, which then affects, you know, the physical substance of our body. There are two aspects to the Jing. So one is it's often referred to as prenatal Jing. So before we were born, essentially what we inherited from our parents. And then the second part is postnatal Jing, the energy, that solid substance of our energy that we gather and use after we're born. So we're no longer necessarily inheriting it from our parents, but we're getting it from all of the things around us. So that prenatal Jing or essence, you can think of in many ways as similar to our genes, you know, the physical structures and patterns that we've inherited from our parents. But there can also be many other parts to that as well, in terms of the energy. It's not just our genes, but the energy that we inherit from our parents that gives us our initial start in life. You know, sometimes, you know, it's very clear with different babies when they're born. Some of them just have more vitality and essence that they've inherited. Others have less. Some also have, you know, clearly inherent qualities. Well, all have clearly inherent qualities to their energy as well that they've inherited from their parents. But then, as we go through life, it's not just that doesn't determine everything for us. That postnatal Jing is really important in terms of how do we then maintain the health of our body, how do we then express that, and how do we then shape our own character, and so on. So that Jing from around us, you know, it comes from things like the food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, all of these sorts of things. And we often tune into it more clearly, more strongly with different types of Qigong practices, where we become more aware of the type of energy that we're bringing in, and we use that as a way to strengthen that depth of our essence. The Jing, or this essence, then goes throughout the body to support the health of the body, particularly to the bone marrows, in terms of keeping the bone marrow healthy, which then releases stem cells to repair the rest of the body, and into the sexual fluids and sexual essences for creating a new life, right? So we inherit our Jing, our prenatal Jing from our parents, and then it's Jing that goes into then producing new life as well. So some of the things that this person asked about, I'll see if I can remember them. So one of them was, okay, is it a store of energy that we draw on when we overworked or stressed or things like that when we need to. In a sense, yes, in that, yes, we do draw on our deepest reserves of energy, and so much so that we might dig into, that most base level of our energy when we're working too hard. And so during these times, we might use up more of that Jing. Well, the second part ties in with another part of their question, which was that we only have a limited supply, and basically at the end of our life, when we've got no more Jing, that's when we pass away. Yeah, so this is the second part. So even if we're not overly stressed or overworked or so on, we're using that base of our energy little by little all the time. You can think of the Jing, again, the most substantial part, as being like the wax of a candle. And little by little it's getting burnt up, it's getting turned into liquid, which flows more like the chi. Well, probably the liquid and the plasma of the flame is like the chi, and then the radiance of the light out from that, that's like the Shen. Yeah, and so little by little, even if we're working gently, it's like, okay, we're using a little bit of that wax, we're using a little bit of that essence. We all have a timeline in this life. It's part of the natural cycles to recognize there's different phases, and part of that is to move on at some point. Not those sneaky Taoists, though. I've talked about this before. It's one of those ironic things that there was a branch of Taoism that was like fascinated with achieving immortality, which in many ways is Taoism all being about following nature, and then it's like, okay, so we're going to cheat nature. Doesn't seem like really being in harmony with nature. Mostly we want to just harmonize ourselves with the cycles of life rather than fight against them. So yes, we do use it up over time. So another part of her question was that, and we can't restore it, we can't add to it. Is it like a store of energy that we can't add to? There's a lot of context around this. So certainly the postnatal Jing, which is the one that we're using in many senses the most for our daily activities and things, yeah, we can add to that, and we should add to that all the time through what we eat, through what we drink, through meditation, qigong practice, through all of those sorts of things. Absolutely. But then that prenatal Jing, what we inherited from our parents, can we restore that if we're using it up? We're not going to like get some more off our parents, are we? In a sense, no, we can't. There's a finite supply. Once it's gone, it's gone. But that's only in a sense. Because sometimes we actually have a lot more potential within that base essence of our energy than is realized. There can be different patterns within our system, within our energy, that are restricting and obstructing some of that Jing, that vital essence, and stopping it from having its complete fullness. And when we're able to shift these very deep patterns, it's not necessarily that suddenly we have more prenatal Jing, but we're allowing ourselves to fully express the prenatal Jing, to have our full inheritance, as it were, when it may have seemed that we had a restricted lesser amount before. Now, to do this normally requires very deep practice. So I think that's why, for all intents and purposes, for most people, no, it's not something that you can generate more of, because you use it up, it's gone. But with very deep practice, it's often possible to discover that, hey, there's actually a lot more potential there, a lot more good and resources that were inherited, but were maybe distorted or obstructed in some way than we realized. And that, kind of effectively is getting more of that Jing, but except it's not really more, it's just uncovering what was already there, allowing it to be expressed fully. I think I've covered what was asked about in that. It's an interesting topic to get into, I guess, just at a fundamental level, to understand a little bit about this relationship between the Jing, the Qi, the Shen, the fact of this recognition of this very substantial aspect to our energy, that it's really important. Again, genes, primary production of the hormones, because this comes from the kidneys as well, that then influences so much of our energy and stuff through our body. Bone marrow, these really deep essential functions we normally think of as being coming from the Jing. Another place you'll hear about that often or sometimes is if you know, look into or hear things about different sexual practices within Qigong, because as I've talked about many times, Qigong is really broad. You know, there's so many different ways we can work with our energy in different ways, and they're all valuable in different ways. And so yeah, including sexual practices that have an influence on our energy, and because that's working with that essence at a deep level, again, we inherit the Jing, you know, to give us our life, and then we pass it on to create a new life. Yeah, sexual practices often yeah, focus in a lot on what those are doing with the Jing within the body, whether you're losing Jing. So that's a classic way, actually, in terms of running out of Jing, is having too much excessive unrestricted sex, but also different sexual practices for maintaining the Jing and strengthening it and so on. All right, another interesting different one, hopefully. I look forward to seeing you on another one soon.